Alright, so this area right here behind me, this is just a long strip that's going to all be brassica, no-till brassica later this summer. This is one of many spots today that I'm going to be broadcasting the buckwheat and then just disking the buckwheat in to get it under the soil. I did the same method in the other food plot behind me this way further, and that was some of my best looking brassicas last year. I actually did, I had a small test spot. Last year I had the corn rows going this way. This year I got them going the long way. But last year I had a little strip of buckwheat that I did no-till brassicas into in this field. But this is going to be a little bit bigger stretch, and we already have the corn planted. That's all coming up, looking really nice. So with this spot, the other spot up by the hill, the other spot just right up there by that food plot, I probably got close to an acre of buckwheat and no-till brassicas this year. So I got 2.5 bags of buckwheat. I already used a half a bag at a different spot, so this should turn out nice. Alright, I should also point out the main reason why I'm kind of switching over to this buckwheat method for my brassica is because a lot of our ground here is pretty wet ground, and it's just full of water hemp and Roundup resistant weeds. Whenever you till the soil and plant brassica, there's just a ton of broadleafs that come up. You can already see this corn was planted probably, I don't know, maybe a little over a week ago. And look at the ground here. There's just millions. Not even all of them are up yet. And we haven't even had a rain since we planted this. This ground had some moisture when we planted the corn, so it had enough moisture to germinate the corn. But look at all this. If we would have gotten a rain, I mean, it would have been like green. It would have been like a green carpet of just millions of little water hemp weeds coming up. So I did a no-till into the standing rye buckwheat planting up there in that food plot last year. And whenever you no-till the buckwheat into rye or some sort of cover crop, or just throw it right on top of bare dirt like this, you're gonna need a lot of rain to germinate that stuff. I've found that this is gonna be my best way to plant brassicas with the best results, least amount of weeds. Basically just get a weed-free tilled up seed bed, broadcast the buckwheat. If a couple weeds come up in here, the buckwheat's gonna grow just as fast as the weeds. And so after I plant this, broadcast this buckwheat, I'm gonna till this up like I said, and then basically in 2 weeks there'll be a bunch of weeds like this coming up along with my buckwheat. My buckwheat will probably be like that big in 2 weeks. So these weeds will, there's gonna be weeds in the buckwheat, but then I come in here and I broadcast the brassica right into the standing buckwheat and standing weeds, and I'll either cultipack, crush it down, and these water hemp things, they don't crush as good as the buckwheat. So in that test spot, I actually came through here and very lightly with the disc, just kind of like chopped up some of the thatch, some of the buckwheat and weeds to get some more of the weeds down, because there's so many weeds in here, the buckwheat couldn't even outcompete the weeds, but it did a pretty good job. Okay, see what I mean by a lot of weeds? This is the next spot. This spot I tilled up probably, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. This definitely hasn't been worked as recently as that cornfield I was just showing you. This is all just pigweed and water hemp and lamb's quarters. This is lamb's quarters right here. Just all really tough Roundup resistant weeds. So I mean, if your plots look like this like 3 weeks after tilling, the brassicas are going to be probably just as big as the weeds, and going to be really fighting against all this. That's why I've slowly switched, well, I wouldn't say slowly, but tilling the buckwheat to get a really good buckwheat crop. You're going to have weeds in here, but the buckwheat's going to grow just as fast, if not faster, than the weeds, unlike brassica, which grows really slow for the first month and then finally takes off after a month of growth. But I guess over here it doesn't look quite as bad, but I know I've had some pretty weedy brassica stands in some of our fields out here, and whenever I do a tilled buckwheat plant and get a real nice thick lush crop of buckwheat and then seed brassica into it and crush it down, that's usually my best looking brassica plots. All right, so this is the last spot. You can see the corn stops there. This whole edge going up is all gonna be brassica, and it turns left and it goes basically to the edge of that field. So it goes up and then turns left at the edge of the corn. And then the other side of this corn, there's a triangle section over there that's all gonna be brassicas. That was mainly all brassica last year. Not quite the exact same sized area, but like I said, that was where some of my best looking brassicas were last year. I got the tractor and disc over there sitting, ready to till it in once I get it all seeded. And this will be the first spot I till in, and then I'm gonna head to the other spots and disc all those in. So things are looking pretty good out here. Summer's going fast. Here's a quick look at the buckwheat. I'm not gonna stop at all the spots, so I'll probably just stop here. I got a few other things to do out here tonight. You can see it's coming up real nice. It almost looks like every seed's coming up, along with, look at all this water hemp and, you know, just broadleaf weeds germinating too. And remember, I just full on disked these seeds in. I know they're about the size of a soybean seed, and some of them were probably, you know, a lot of the seeds were probably anywhere between 1 to 2 inches deep, and they're coming up just fine. So don't be afraid to disc your seeds in. I mean, having it deeper is better than right on top, because, you know, you got to get the seed down, you know, deep where the moisture is. You leave them right on top, but they're going to dry up and you're going to get real poor germination. So yeah, things are looking good. I'll have at least one more update in this video. I know this is pretty wet ground. It had plenty of moisture when I planted it. But hopefully this stuff, you know, is at least knee high by mid-July or late July when I want to plant brassicas into it. Well, here we are. This is the final buckwheat update. I'm going to be actually planting the brassicas today. I'm just getting ready to start seeding. You can see this stuff is like almost chest high out there. I'll get a little quick look at that side too once I get over there and start seeding that side. And I'll give you an update on some of the other spots yet tonight too before I crush it down. But yeah, I'm not even all the way in here, and it's like, you know, belly high here. Up there it's like chest high, so it's gonna be a little bit difficult to seed into. You'll have to hold the bag, seed her up a little bit, but it just blows my mind how fast this stuff grows every year. I mean, even this year with the lack of rain, I mean, there's one of my buckwheat spots, the weeds are about the same height as the buckwheat. I guess on that side too there's a little bit more weeds, but the buckwheat pretty much did a good job of choking out most of the weeds. There's a few weeds scattered, but for the most part this stuff grows faster than weeds, and it just smothers out everything. Unbelievable. And you can see this is perfect for seeding brassicas, because you till it, you till when you plant the buckwheat, so you end up with a nice bare ground underneath all this. So basically the seeds fall and they land on the soil, crush all this over. The seeds are pretty much right on bare soil underneath about a ½ inch or inch of buckwheat thatch, and that thatch quickly dries up and disappears once you crush it and spray it. So this is definitely the best way to end up with weed-free brassica plots. All right, I'm on the other side of the corn now. This is what this buckwheat's looking like. This is that newer spot. This was all brush last year. Kind of extended this food plot. This stuff, there's like no weeds there at all because this is a first year plot. But then this out here is the bigger area. This buckwheat's actually bigger. A few more weeds out in this plot too. This is one of the same spots that I did the same method last year. Not quite the exact same area. This is like a triangle piece. Last year was like an oval right here at Brassica. And they hit these really hard last year. These Brassicas right here. This plot had fertilizer on it when we disked it all up and planted the corn. I fertilized this side. This did not get any fertilizer on it. I don't really plan on putting any on it today, maybe next year. See how these do. Yeah, it actually looks probably a little better than last year. Last year there was a few more weeds, I feel like, out here. I can't remember exactly, but you can see there's a couple here and there. Those weeds this size do not crush down that easily. The weeds got to be like that big or bigger to crush down good. The buckwheat all crushes down pretty good, but then you're left with a few weeds here and there. So yeah, I'm gonna get seeding this here. All right, so here we are in the flag plot. You can see I got my rows of corn and rows of soybeans, and this is where the stars would be of the flag. This buckwheat and soon to be brassica. You can see up here it's like really short, you know, it's really dry up here. But in there it's again about chest high and a few weeds popping up in there. But overall it looks pretty good. I'm literally just getting ready to seed this. I got my seeder here. There's actually a few soybeans left over in here. From when I originally broadcasted soybeans in here to help, you know, take off some browse off of the little bit of beans I do have in here. And then you know, a couple weeks later I disked it up and put in the buckwheat. But yeah, looks pretty good. You can see the weeds really came in on this wetter plot. Buckwheat's all about 4 feet tall. Some of these weeds are getting up past the buckwheat now. This is all water hemp. I did the same thing last year in the same exact field. I had these same weed issues and it turned out great. So I'm gonna do the same thing again here this year. The only thing I'm worried about, like I said, everything's a little wet, so hopefully I can get an okay kill. All right, here's the final little buckwheat spot. I actually have 3 other spots of buckwheat I didn't show you in this video, smaller plots, but the videos I'm sure is already getting pretty long. But you can see this buckwheat did pretty good in certain sections. And then where I'm standing right here, it's only about like waist high, probably because of this tree right here. Maybe it was sucking some moisture, shading it. But you can see there's definitely a lot of weeds coming in. There's lamb's quarters, some pig weeds. So this might be a little problem spot right here because buckwheat and these weeds aren't quite as tall. And when these weeds are about knee high like this, they like to spring back up after you smash all the buckwheat down. But in those taller sections, and even if the weeds are taller, when the weeds are taller and when the buckwheat's taller, both of them crush easier. When the weeds are short like this is all going to spring back up. But even sometimes this buckwheat springs back up when it's kind of shorter. But most of it looks pretty good. You can see there's some really tall sections out there. There's like one weed that's really tall there sticking up. That's kind of weird. And then throughout the whole backside there's actually less weeds as well, probably because it's a little bit more shaded back there. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm seeding this right now. I got my bag seeder out here, and I just seeded a couple plots over that way yesterday. So I'll probably have these Brassica videos out probably sometime in September. So a little bit yet. Gotta let them grow so I can, you know, include the updates like I usually do. So yeah, get planting out there. This is the time right now.